Hi, I'm Neil with SKF. Today we're working on this 2002 Chevy Suburban 4x4. We're going to be replacing the front SKF premium hub unit bearing. Okay, we've raised up in the air our 2002 Chevy Suburban, removed the tire. Now in order to get to the hub unit, we're going to have to take off a few different parts. We're going to have to remove the caliper bracket and assembly. We're going to have to remove the axle nut. On the back side, there'll be a couple of bolts for the bracket, for the caliper bracket, and then there's going to be 3 bolts on the back side, which I'll show you for the hub unit assembly itself. And then the ABS cord, of course, is attached in 4 different spots on the connections, and we're going to be removing those as well. Okay, we're going to be removing the 2 caliper bracket retaining bolts. These are 18 millimeter. There's one up top here, the top location, and then there's one down here on the bottom portion of the caliper bracket. That's the upper bolt. Now we'll remove the lower bolt. We have to slide off this bracket. Sometimes you have to pry it just a bit from the caliper assembly itself, from the brake rotor. And you want to put it up on top or use a bungee cord to hold it in place to keep it from falling. You certainly don't want to hang it from this brake line. Okay, next we're going to be removing the 3 retaining bolts for the hub unit itself. There's one upper one, there's a lower one down here, and then there's one on the far side. In order to gain access a little easier, what I did is I pushed back this axle shaft a little bit. I just used a punch in the center portion of it and knocked it in a little bit. Gives me a little extra room to be able to get access to these bolts. This upper bolt is sometimes harder to get at because of the access. You can see the upper ball joint, of course, the stud coming through on the knuckle assembly kind of interferes with getting any type of impact equipment on it. So what I did is I put a breaker bar on it and I loosened it up because they are fairly tight. Then I'm going to get access with it as standard ratchet instead of my impact gun. Okay, and then we're going to go to the other side, remove that bolt. These don't actually have to come out all the way. You can have them set in here as long as they're removed from the hub assembly. Okay, we're going to be removing the 3rd retaining bolt, and this one you can gain access with your impact gun. Again, it was a 15 millimeter socket. And that one comes right out of place. Next, we're going to be working on disconnecting the ABS cord. This is where the ABS sensor cord is connected to the hub assembly. You can see right here it's just a little Allen head, and that's the sensor head. But the cord strings through the back plate, and we're going to be removing that next. The sensor cord is connected at 3 different locations on the lower portion, and then one up here where the connector itself goes into place. Most of these are just what they call a Christmas tree style, and you can pull those right off. If one happens to break, don't worry, the new SKF hub unit has the new sensor cord Christmas tree connectors with it. Okay, there you have it. Okay, sometimes the hub unit itself can be kind of stubborn to get out of place. They've been on the road for a while. They get kind of rusted into the knuckle assembly itself. You certainly could use a hammer on the back side since you would be replacing the hub unit assembly. I've hooked up a hub puller to this particular hub unit, and we're going to use this to remove the hub assembly. You'll see that the backing plate will come off with it. That's okay. Get that back into place. Before we reinstall the new hub unit assembly, you can see that this knuckle has built up a lot of rust inside the assembly. We're going to clean this all out. Otherwise, if you leave that in there, try to seat the new hub unit, it may not preload correctly or even seat correctly. Okay, to reinstall the new unit, I lined up the backing plate, fed through the ABS cord through the back of the backing plate. I got the knuckle assembly cleaned out. I also added a little bit of grease on the back side of the hub unit. This will aid in ease of installation, also removal if you have to do any other front end work at a later date. Okay, we have the new hub assembly lined up. We got the CV shaft back through. What we want to do is seat the back bolts first, and we'll show you the tightening setup for those. Those also should be torqued to specifications. We'll tighten those up, and we'll show you how to set the preload also on the axle nut. Okay, we're just going to snug up these 3 retaining bolts on the back of the caliper. I did most of these by hand just to get them tight and in place. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to use my torque wrench gun, and we're going to set the specification on all 3 of those bolts. We're about to hook up the ABS sensor cable to the harness side. We want to make sure that this harness side weather pack connector is still in place and in good shape before we plug this in. Otherwise we can cause some ABS problems down the road. This one's in good shape. We're going to go ahead and plug this one back in. Okay, we're ready to install the washer and the new axle nut. Okay, I put the rotor back on. I helped hold it in place with a couple of axle nuts so it doesn't move around on us. Then we're going to reseat the caliper bracket back into place. We're going to bolt up and torque our 2 retaining bolts. Okay, we have the 2 caliper bolts snugged up in place. Now we're going to set the torque for each of those bolts. Okay, the final step is to preload the bearing itself, so we're going to tighten it up with the torque wrench. This will help seat it and create the preload. Thank you for watching this video today, and remember, when choosing a replacement part for your vehicle, don't compromise safety. Install confidence with SKF bearings and seals. For complete product information, visit skfpartsinfo.com or follow us on Twitter at skfpartsinfo.